Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of March 1st, 2023. The City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington Open Public Meetings Act. Tonight, council members are participating in person. Community members are welcome to join either in person, via Zoom, or by calling in. For those who wish to participate in the future via Zoom, you'll find the instructions to register for public comment on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. Please note, we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office, and we also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Vice President Tui.
Here.
Councilmember Fossey.
Excused?
Councilmember Schwab.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Excused?
President Stonecipher.
Here. Councilmember Ryan, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Absolutely. Please stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Councilmember Zarlingo, would you please read the land acknowledgement this evening?
Gladly. This council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stohost people, and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of the lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and the water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes of February 22nd, 2023?
Councilor Ryan so moves.
Councilmember Tui seconds that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Franklin.
Good evening. No comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Angie, do we have anyone signed up to speak for public comment this evening?
Hello, President Stonecipher. We have first a written comment from Alvaro Gillen, and that's been provided to council, administration, and clerk to be part of the permanent record. We have two individuals signed up to speak via Zoom, but want to wait to speak until we get to agenda item number 22.
Okay.
And we do have one person in chamber, so if Howie could please come to the podium. And just press the right button on the base and then state your full name and city of residence. And you have 3 minutes to speak. Yep, it's on.
Howie Bargreen, 2821 Rucker, Everett, Washington. Not too long ago, organizations, leaders would say, I don't want anybody who works for me to do anything that I wouldn't do. I think we forgot a lot of that in the last few years. I don't think that the people that work for the city and the people that represent the city spend very much time, at least in Old Town, downtown Everett. I know this city's not just downtown Everett, but historically, if you don't make the downtown okay, it affects the entire area. You know, so there's people like me that have lived here and worked here for a long time and are here every day. And I don't see the people that work in the building next door around town much. I think they come in, they park in the parking lot down in the basement. They do their work. I don't see them in the restaurant, so I'm assuming they're brown bagging or fasting. And then they get into their cars and they drive to some other community where they live. And I don't see anybody that's running these organizations wanting to do what everybody else in the organization has to do. Let me give you an example. we're getting incredible amount of problems with the street criminals, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better in downtown Everett. I mean, Councilman Tui must see that. She's worked in downtown Everett. And when they take these, when the street criminals take these drugs, there's only one street person that I know that isn't on drugs or is an alcoholic. And that guy's been on the street for 25 years. He still comes in the coffee store and has coffee. But been living outside for 25 years. But all these other people are street criminals. I mean, in my opinion, you're a criminal if you're taking illegal drugs. But it affects these people. The illegal drugs really affect them. And when they are walking along, usually the alleys, and they have a problem,
Your time is almost up, Howie.
this is what you're gonna have at your front door or your back door. And I'm the one that cleans it up at my store, and I'll tell you why. I think that I should do it. I don't hire these people to clean this stuff up, right? So that's what I do, and that's what and if the people that were working in the city, all the bosses, had to do the same thing, maybe they'd think more about what are we gonna do to get rid of these street criminals? Because Edmonds kicked them out, so they're here. After Edmonds kicked them out, it like doubled the amount of street criminals we have. I mean, just like
I need you to
that.
wrap it up, sorry. I need you to wrap it up.
Please think about that.
Thank you, Howie. And President Stonecipher, that's all we have for now.
Thank you. We will move on to council comments and liaison reports. We're going to start with Councilmember Zarlingo.
Thank you. A couple of things, couple of nights, well, actually, last night I attended the Pinehurst Beverly Park neighborhood meeting, neighborhood that Councilmember Ryan and I share, and I'm always impressed with their consistent interest in their community, their involvement, and their ongoing contribution. As I had to leave a bit early, they were discussing projects they're going to be doing in the neighborhood this coming year. So I'm happy to see that. And also, actually, they had an equity presentation last night at the neighborhood meeting by Everett's equity manager, Kay Barnes. And that was a really interesting, an interesting event for me. She introduced a tool that involved concentric circles as a way to represent equity factors and concepts in a way that was new and helpful to me, so thanks to Kay Barnes. One other thing, earlier this week I attended a grand opening of a small business that's a computer and network services and repair operation for individuals and small businesses, both on-site and house calls. And I don't want to do commercial things from here, so I won't mention the specific business, but I was happy to see, in general terms, a new business come in, but also there were several things that struck me as part of why we've got some great people building a greater city. First, they were taking the initiative to revitalize a commercial space that had been unoccupied for some time. Secondly, they did the vast majority of the tenant improvements themselves, resulting in a really inviting and a functional and a high-quality space. Doing the work themselves increased the resilience of their business by reducing the upfront costs, and I'm sure it improves cash flow. That resilience is really critical at the early stages of a new business where too many that would otherwise contribute to their community just don't survive. So I'm sure we can all point to businesses that we were sad to lose, and I'm encouraged about this one and their resilience. Third, this was a family business where parents get a chance to spend some additional time with their kids. And I noticed that they were also supported by another couple who have a similar business and kids involved as well on the east side, bringing the same benefits to that community. So I do want to say, kind of in conclusion, that I admire and appreciate their contribution to our community. They provide both jobs and needed services for our community, and they do it from inside our community. They're critical elements of opportunity and quality of life for us here in Everett. Of course, sales and business tax revenue that helps fund our community. They're helping make our commercial spaces that have suffered so much in the internet stage, in the internet age, and with the pandemic, more vital and attractive. And finally, taking a personal risk of time and money and sweat to make a vote of confidence in our community. And I hope our work on behalf of the city, in our work, we do all we can to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, good evening. On Monday, I joined for the Department of Neighborhoods meeting as I'm the liaison for the Department of Neighborhoods, and wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to Nick Shekarek with our city, who does the social media managing, and he joined the meeting to share more about best practices for how neighborhoods can engage community members through Facebook and social media. So it was really great to share that knowledge with everybody. So thank you to Nick for his expertise. Over the weekend, I joined for the UFCW 3000 vigil at the Drew Nielsen Park to address patient care and staffing shortages at Providence Hospital. And it was a really good turnout and a really great show of support from not just that specific union, but from other unions, just to show solidarity and support for our nurses moving forward. I've been doing my small little part as an individual council member to sign in on letters of support at the state legislative level, and to do my best to help support changes at the state level to support our nurses. So I was hoping that the city is also taking an active role in this matter too. I was disappointed to see that the long-awaited legislative priorities briefing was pulled from the agenda for tonight. I was really looking forward to hearing how the city's been participating in the legislative session this year, and also what types of bills and which bills that they've been specifically advocating for. So I look forward to when that gets added back to the agenda. I also wanted to share a congratulations to the Silver Tips for making it to the WHL playoffs again. Congratulations. Go Tips.
Thank you. Mayor Franklin, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick update. For the legislative session, we share weekly updates with the council, and so I encourage you to read through that. And if you have questions around specific items, let us know, and we'll be sure to update you either through me or Trevor, our lobbyist. But I do believe that council is very much in the loop as to what the city is doing in Olympia through the weekly updates that we provide.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thanks. Yeah, I read them every week that they do come through, and it's I see that it's a listing of bills that the city's tracking. Further, I was looking forward to the update to hear more about, in addition to tracking all of the bills going through the state legislature, which ones were being, there's only a few that were marked as opposed or support, so I wasn't sure where the city was leaning on the different bills. So I was looking forward to a more robust update.
Okay, we'll try to provide that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Tui.
Yeah, I just have one thing I wanted to share. I met with administration this week in regards to, we talked about the City of Edmonds traffic calming grants for their neighborhoods. And so we talked about how could we use ARPA funds for this. And so admin is going to be looking into this, seeing how we could maybe adopt this kind of a program for how it would fit in for Everett. And, you know, most of the projects are for electronic speed signs. There aren't any major measures that require major work, but there could be some great things for our neighborhood associations to write grants for. So anyway, once the city's done reviewing the program, I would like to see it come forward to the Safe Community Committee, and hopefully brought forward then to the full council with some kind of program.
That sounds great. And one of those priorities that we had was really traffic calming
Right.
through neighborhoods.
Yeah,
So that
it was
would fit right in perfectly
very
there.
timely, so
Yeah.
anyway, thank you,
Thank
that's
you.
all.
Councilmember Schwab.
No report.
Thank you. And I just wanted to remind my colleagues that we've got a couple things going on. If any of you would like to serve on the ad hoc committees related to council procedures, namely the guidelines for communication, the remote meeting participation, and the redistricting, that's not our procedure, that's a separate committee, but the redistricting handbook committee, please let me know by this Friday so we can get that work going. And also, as we are getting closer to paperless council meetings, I wanted to remind you that if you are one of the people that needs to connect with Angie about technology, make sure you do so, because we will be making that paperless transition as soon as we have everybody up to speed on their non-paper forms of getting their agendas for the meetings. So make sure you do that. And do we have an administrative update this evening?
No update, thank you.
Thank you. And City Attorney Hall, what do you have for us?
No report, no executive session.
Thank you. We'll go to our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion for the 11 consent items?
Councilmember Ryan, so moves.
Seconded.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. We have 5 proposed action items. They're all second readings, have been previously read into the record. Are there any questions on the 5 items that we have proposed for a future meeting? Seeing none, we'll go to item 17. Item 17 is a public hearing. I'm going to read the item and open the public hearing. And item number 17 is Council Bill 2302-09. It's the third and final reading. Adopt the ordinance relating to the downtown business improvement area, amending ordinance number 3582-17 as amended. Do we have and we will now, I'll now open the public hearing. Do we have a staff report on this evening?
No staff report.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll just go down the roll, see if council members have any, wait, we had a couple people signed up to speak on this, is that correct, Angie? Or that was a later item?
That was item 22.
Okay, do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak in this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Councilmember Ryan moves to close the public hearing.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Before we take a vote on the motion, do we have any questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Zarlingo.
Just happy to see an example where a group is willing to tax themselves to help provide additional services, customize things, and make a positive difference in the community. I'm all for those kind of commitments, whether they're in kind or cash or personal efforts, as Mr. Bargreen talked about.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I just want to thank Liz and her team. I think you guys do a great job. Really appreciate it. I'm down there every day, so I do see the impact that you're making. So thank you for all that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I just want to say that I, was here when this BIA was formed, and they kind of took it slow at the beginning, and it has really built into, I think, a very, very successful model for business improvement area. I think the group has done, and Liz, thank you, has done a great job of kind of clearly defining the role of the BIA and not getting too far afield and making sure that those tax dollars are being stewarded carefully. And that's what makes it successful. And I hope the Everett Station District Alliance can follow in suit. I know they're getting guidance from you. And so appreciate very much your work in helping them as well. Any other questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. We'll move on to our action items. I'll read items 18 through 20 into the record as they are third and final readings. Item 18, Council Bill 2302-06, third and final reading. Adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled Wall Street Connector, Fund 303, Program 129. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Seconded.
Any questions or comments on item 18? Okay, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Item 19, Council Bill 2302-07, third and final reading. Adopt an ordinance closing a special improvement project entitled Water Transmission Line Replacement at 91st Avenue Southeast, Fund 336, Program 009, as established by ordinance number 3728-20. Do I hear a motion?
So moved?
Seconded.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Item 20, Council Bill 2302-08, third and final reading. Adopt an ordinance setting the meeting time schedule for City Council's regularly scheduled meetings, repealing ordinance number 3170-10. Do I hear a motion?
So moved?
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? Mayor Franklin?
Yeah, so this is the one that is actually making all meetings evening, is that correct?
Correct.
Just as a note for all of our colleagues that we will not be able to attend Snohomish County tomorrow. So council will not be able to attend regional-wide planning that we do with all other cities in Snohomish County. Or I will not be able to attend a council meeting, or a council member will not be able to attend. So I just wanted to be very clear that this is a significant conflict with a very important organization that we don't get to set their meeting times. It is set by all the other cities and the county that leads that work. So,
Yeah. Well, let's consider how we might be able to manage our agenda so that we could have a council member that maybe would miss a council meeting if there wasn't anything serious on the agenda, so they could attend that meeting. It is important planning work. Any other questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Item 21 is I will read the item. Item 21, concur with the recommendations of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee to accept the long-term obligations of the hotel motel tax listed and to allocate grant funding as designated in the amount not to exceed $545,000 and authorize the mayor to sign the contracts. Do I hear a motion?
Councilmember Ryan so moves.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
Yes, Council President, I need to recuse myself from this item as my employer is on the recommended list, and I do not receive any personal benefit from this grant. I will recuse myself.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee recommendations. And do I hear any questions or comments? Councilmember Ryan.
I just wanted to make a comment that this is a very exciting list of fun things to look forward to through the rest of the year. And I just wanted to give a particular shout out to the 4th of July parade that's going to be coming back this year. I've heard an update at the Council of Neighborhoods meeting on Monday to share more about the work that they've been doing, I believe since last April, to put it on, and that they're looking for additional sponsorships if anybody's out there and interested. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll just say, as the chair of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, I was really happy to see that we had quite a few new projects that had applied for funding. And we were able to fund most of the projects. We were able to fund everything that qualified for funding. And then we were able to fund a lot of new things that are coming to our community. So that'll be really a welcome addition to the fun things that we have to offer our community, as well as visitors. And so I'm really glad to be part of that. And I wanted to thank the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee members who do a lot of work. There were a lot of applications, as you saw, and we had a 2.5-hour deliberation meeting as we looked at those funding amounts. So that was it was a great process. That's all I have to say. Any other questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes, and we'll move on to our council briefing agenda. It was stated earlier, item 23 was removed from the agenda tonight, but we have item 22, the Sound Transit Everett Link Extension Environmental Impact Statement Scoping. I know we have a couple people for public comments, and we'll do that after we hear from staff. We've got our Economic Development Director, Dan Ernessy, and our Planning Director, Yorick Stevens-Wajda here, and maybe some other staff.
President Stonecipher, I don't think we did a motion in a second we closed the public hearing, but we didn't take a motion.
Thank
Before
you.
the vote.
Should we go back and do that at this time? Okay. My apologies. Item 17. I'll read it again and we'll take a motion. Council Bill 2302-09, third and final reading. Adopt the ordinance relating to the Downtown Business Improvement Area, BIA, amending ordinance number 3582-17 as amended. Do I have a motion?
Councilmember Ryan moves approval.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? please take the roll.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Thank you, and thank you, Clerk, for keeping us honest.
And President
Okay.
Stonecipher on Sound Transit, just a side note, we've got Dan Ernest, Yorick, so Economic Development and Planning, but we also have Ryan Sass and Tom Hinkson, Transit and Public Works. Sound Transit is a very complicated project. I serve as our board member, one of only 3 board members with Snohomish County, so work really hard to advocate for the city of Everett and our entire county. Councilmember Zarlingo has been my partner in crime, helping a lot on the Everett Leadership Group, which is electeds that are advising the board before things get to the board, and it is a 4-person plus team that advises me in the work that we do for Sound Transit. So thank you to all of you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you. We won't be able to stump you tonight with any questions then. Thank you.
And if that weren't enough, there's 2 Sound Transit employees who are able to comment virtually if necessary.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. It's good to be here in front of you all. Let me get the PowerPoint going. As Mayor Franklin said, we have been working tirelessly for years to get to this point. We anticipate having years more before final decisions are made. What we are about today is that there is a board briefing coming up for the Sound Transit Board in May that will result in a June decision to select preferred alternative and a backup on several different decisions. And our job really as staff is to advise the mayor and others on what is best for the city of Everett. That's really what it comes down to. I'm going to try to go through a 76-slide PowerPoint quickly. I just got done watching The Sting again, which was a great movie. And I encourage you that if I start to bog down and take after my father as a slow talker, just do this right there and I'll know what you're saying. So off we go. The June board decision will not be final. There will be a 2-year following where in 2025 the board will decide if the preferred alternative is confirmed or not, and then a final decision in 2026. This graphic, which is available online on Sound Transit's site, gives you an idea of where we are. We are right in the leading up to that June 2023 decision, after which there will be an environmental impact study for a couple years. We've arranged the presentation tonight by decisions with each of the station areas and the OMF. We are going to move south to north, which unfortunately is easy to hard. I will go really quickly on the things that are outside the city of Everett and just have a break for discussion. And then after each of the different stations and alternatives, I'll break if there's any questions. Obviously, I'm trying to do the play-by-play and have Yorick and Tom and Ryan and others provide any color commentary that you need along the way. The illustrations, I just have to use the disclaimer. These are preliminary, very preliminary in the process. These are opinions of our staff. This is not Sound Transit. Sound Transit asked me to say that. We have 3 years of engineering design work ahead of us just to get to a point where better decisions can be made. But each of the alternatives that we have at this point going forward will require an enormous amount of cost and expense to study. And so to limit the number of alternatives is important in the process, just so we can provide focus. So we'll start with the station around Alderwood Mall. This one's a pretty easy one. There's 3 options right now, B, D, and F. And from the Sound Transit work, they've done a scoring where they've had a number of criteria and then kind of hot to cold in a sense. The green is good. The orange and red is less good, is bad. And what York has done, which is really helpful, is he's separated out the ones in the bottom that there was no difference in, and then put the ones in the top, that the criteria that had more change. And you'll see sometimes there'll be a lot of very vanilla decisions and sometimes not. B definitely performs more poorly. The comparative cost I've highlighted as an important thing. We are really worried about cost building up south of us, and that together will slow down completing the line to downtown Everett. So our recommendation is easy on this one. The preference is Station D, highest scoring, with a backup of Station F. Ash Way is at 164th. There are really two options, and since two are going to go forward, I won't spend a lot of time other than to say, even though D crosses the freeway twice, cost-wise, an initial thought is pretty even. There's a lot more right-of-way on the east side of the freeway, and the track can run at grade, and that's a significant cost saver. It also is the D site, which is kind of kitty corner from the Walmart at 164th, is you'll probably get information from a church that is interested in that location. I know Sound Transit is working with a church that would be either affected or displaced there, and they've been pretty active on vocalizing their opposition to that. The other thing that will weigh into this is that the D option is the county's preliminary preferred alternative, which fits better with their overall transportation plan to serve the east side of the freeway as well as the west. So we are recommending study both A and D with a particular emphasis on cost to make sure that neither one of these is more costly. I mean, the more costly option is not selected. Mariner, which is getting closer to Everett, is a very dense area, and there's roughly, in this graphic, about 13,000 in that immediate station area that will be served. Again, there's three options. The kind of wild card in this is that Station D, which didn't score well, just put against A and B, is predicated on an overpass being built over I-5 for buses to serve that area better. And once that happens, then the score changes, and that is something that's in the county's long-term plan. Again, this is a station area that is in their preliminary preferred alternative, and they believe that that will affect the overall function of that Station D. And so we are recommending that Station B, which is the highest performing of the other two, be studied, as well as Station D, which is the county's preliminary preferred alternative. So at that point, I just wanted to, are there any questions of those stations that are south of Everett? Or should I push forward?
Any questions from council? Push forward.
Off we go.
I'll only note that at least Mariner is in the city's potential annexation area, so that was the one station that might be in the city's city limits in the near future.
Airport Road is the first station, and I will emphasize this is what's called a provisional station, which means the station area planning will be conducted during Sound Transit 3 and was funded for Sound Transit 3, but the station itself will not be built as far as the funding goes. At least that's the thought at this point. So and I will say it also is very straightforward. There's only two suggested alternatives. This is the most, like I said, vanilla of the decisions, in that there's very little difference in performance on these two stations. One is lands on the kind of pointy end of that triangle between Airport and Evergreen Way, and it performs slightly better in the transit connectivity. This is really a key transit connection because there's two swift lines coming together right here. And we think this station will really be an effective station for serving up and down Evergreen corridors.
And can you elaborate a little bit? So it is not going to be built because because of their funding
That's right.
challenges, even though it was in the
No,
ST3
so,
plan?
so the provisional station was, in the plan was a provisional, so it
Okay.
means that we were never planning to actually build this as part of the Sound Transit 3 package. However, if additional funding comes through at a later date, this is one of the first places that the
Priorities.
station would be
Okay,
built.
thank you. And the way Sound Transit works, would that be built before they would extend further north, for example, or something?
Good question. I think all of that is kind of up to the 19-member board, of which only 3 of us are in Snohomish County.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
One quick note on that too. One of the Sound Transit folks had said that putting a station in later was more expensive than putting it in initial installation. So we will lean on them to do all they can to look ahead to that kind of stuff and do the least prejudicial things, the least to make that as easy a station to add as possible, because transit connections are really,
Yeah.
like the Swift buses, are really critical to Sound Transit, because that's how you get people to the high-capacity light rail.
Yeah.
So we're doing all we can on that, but that is a hard one.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll push forward. Southwest Everett Industrial, AKA Boeing site. There are 3 options presented for this. The pink A alignment and station is the representative alignment, and what I mean by representative, and it's pink in all of the different documents you see. The representative alignment is the one that was put forward to voters initially to just show what might be. And then it was always considered to be, that could be changed in the future. But that, just to make that point, that's what the pink colors are. So the 2 alternatives to that are along Airport Road and have different transit connectivity benefits as far as on Airport. But overall, the function of A is far superior. And that is even amplified by the fact that Boeing is willing to build an overpass of 526 at their cost that will be available for their employees to access their site and for them to serve their employees. Their site is so large, they'll probably have the shuttle come right to that endpoint. They really are confident that their future workforce is going to rely heavily on public transportation, and by the time this is built and everything goes forward, we're confident that the 30,000 employees per day in Boeing will take a significant number of cars off the road by having this ready access. It also is the best location for serving our residents along the Casino Road area. The station is within a quarter mile of I guess the westernmost edge of where the housing starts on Casino Road.
Can you scroll back to just that map there? So when you look at Station A, it is the only station that borders on a residential community. Stations B and C, there's no residential communities there. So Station A serves not only the largest industrial partner, the largest employer in the county, but almost the largest employer in the state, but it also serves our most economically diverse population and one of our most ethnically diverse populations along Casino Road. So for us, for the city, it is by far the preferred station, where the other 2 stations just don't serve our residents at all.
Yeah.
Thank you for adding that. And I will also state that there's been some quite a bit of people saying, well, why isn't light rail going to the airport? And as Painfield grows in prominence in our economics and in our lives, that is definitely a good question. First, there's no planning at all for the whole alignment to shift out to the airport. Therefore, all of these station areas will require shuttle service. And at that point, we as staff didn't see any significant difference between A, B, and C as far as serving the airport goes. If Station A were not selected, we think the only alternative that could really provide the kind of transit connectivity, which would be very important because it's like the mayor said, it's out in the middle of nowhere in a sense from residential, is Station B. But really, this is kind of like if hold our breath or hold our nose and select one of the other ones because A is such a strong preference for the city. Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. If I may.
Please.
I think this slide's super interesting and all of the different potential places that the station could go. So some of the things that I think about for this space specifically is that for, with option A, or with any of the options really, there's the House bill, or maybe it's a Senate bill going through that's requiring transit-oriented development within a certain distance from major transit stations. So in an industrial area like this, how would that impact the businesses that are there? What could a development around there look like, or where would it even go? I've been trying to think that through, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, great question. And you know, the easy answer is we don't know because until that bill is passed, it'll affect. But I think we all envision that area right around the station should be changed as we do our station area planning in the future once the final decision is made. Those blocks are so enormous that it's really difficult to appreciate the size of how far like 526 is from Casino Road. At that area is probably like 4 or 5 city blocks that could be surrounded with a grid. I will also articulate that in 2019, the council gave us the green light to at least consider the redevelopment of Walter E. Hall Golf Course. And that this station area would be the main service connection to light rail from that redevelopment, which would be a really an amazing amenity, not only in rethought parkland and walking space and different things for this neighborhood that can really serve, but also in the ability to provide more housing and commercial amenities for the neighborhood.
York, do you want to?
Yeah, just the bill that you're referencing, the transit-oriented development bill, has some ones and maybe a 0 in it, would only apply to land that allows housing. So if you allow housing, then within a quarter mile and 3/4 mile of major transit stops, there would be a minimum density that you would be required to allow. So it would not affect any industrial zone land.
Thank you.
So those industrial zones might not serve actual residents.
Got it. Great. Thank you for the clarification. The other, with option B, it's right next to Snow Isle Tech Center, and they are hoping to add a 3rd building. So I just wanted to plant that little seed. And then I'd also had heard that 526 is potentially widening, if I'm remembering that correctly. Is that correct? Anybody? Ryan, thank you.
At least I'm not walking up from the back. Yeah, we're currently working concurrently with WashDOT on 526 corridor improvements. That project is at about between 60 and 90% design, and it adds primarily, among other things, HOV, additional capacity eastbound from the Boeing plant to I-5. That project is, the ST team, both our team and the Sound Transit team is aware of that project, and so it's designed not to preclude or cause any great difficulty to any of these options.
Okay. So so I assume that the widening would require some right-of-way acquisition or possible displacement. So then I'd be curious to hear what the considerations are for like further right-of-way acquisition from the light rail project as well.
Yeah, the corridor improvements doesn't require much in the way of right-of-way. Most of all of that will be built within the current right-of-way corridor.
Great. And then, so when I think about roads widening or an extra lanes, glad to hear it's HOV, I think about how drivers are less likely to change their mode of travel. So I would love to see just a commitment for increased transit ridership from the folks that would be benefiting from a station at the A location. If that's clear. And that's all. I think, did you have a question? I saw you have a hand raised earlier. I'm good.
Well, just
Thank
only
you.
one point. I think sometimes there's an automatic assumption where that this large Boeing employee contingent would be coming from the north end. But as we're seeing with the 737 MAX line coming here and Boeing shifting people around labor as they need to, and I think Mayor Franklin has talked about this before, we have the chance to be bringing in people from the south as well and making this much more attractive. And I think that's a critical element for us, some incentives, as I think you may be hinting at, that Boeing might make to have their employees take transit, but also making it a better choice for employees. So this could be much better that way, and I think we could really be a model for the region here.
Yeah, I think those are really great points. One thing that I've always, felt a little disappointed about is that our SOV, our single occupant vehicle goals that many of our employers have put forth, are essentially unenforceable, and it would be nice if we had, looked at some models where we could say to people, we've got the transportation, assuming we're gonna get Everett Transit, buffed up as well, but once you have that transit infrastructure, it seems like it might be a little easier for us to say to employers, gee, if you don't meet these goals, there could be some penalties that you'll pay into the fund with. I'd love for us to look at those, any kind of options that we would have. I don't know if we're precluded by state law from entering some of those kind of agreements with employers, but I know that there have been, over the years that I've been on council, several times when we were promised reductions in single occupant vehicles that really, I don't think have ever materialized. And we never go back and look.
Ready to press on?
Yes.
Evergreen Way and Casino Road. This station area is a tale of two stories. First, I just wanted to set the table that, again, going back to that 2019 council meeting, and this was the vision statement that the staff put forward: to foster an ongoing effort along Casino Road to create a stable, attractive, and opportunity-filled environment that lifts both the area and its constituents. And so I wanted to just emphasize the goals for Evergreen and Casino are somewhat unique in that we have really worked to enhance the lives of residents, create economic opportunities for local businesses, protect the community's culture, avoid the costs that delay the completion of the light rail, and broader goals that really affect that whole web triangle area, that we really don't want any net loss in affordable housing. And when I say ever, I mean permanently. What we're worried about is a lot of the affordable housing there is naturally occurring. And it needs to be offered by organizations like Everett Housing Authority that provide permanent affordable housing. We also want to create permanently affordable commercial space in that area too, it would be a new initiative for us in the city. To that end, we explored many station and alignment options, more on this probably than any one area. It's challenging in lots of different ways. We eliminated a couple alignments down Casino Road as just too invasive. One was just running the track down, and that was easy to eliminate. The second was a cut and cover tunnel, which let me just point it at myself. I thought, oh, that might be an alternative, but it turns out cut and cover tunnels are extremely, A, expensive, and B, leave a big, nasty thing. I almost went back to the overhead would be better compared to it. We did not look at bored tunnels. That was something that was just never in the budget or the engineering ability for us. We eliminated other options with engineering flaws, and 5 options were left standing. Only 3 I'm going to talk about today. I've struck out the other 2 just because they just really don't perform up to the level of the other ones. Station A is on the north side. That's, again, the representative one. That's on the south end of the old Kmart site where Devco is building the Four Corners development. And then Station B is on the Casino Square property. And then Station E is on the north edge of the Zipley Fiber property across the street from Dunn Lumber. I will just point out that the purple alignment that serves B, but not C, is the only one on the south side that has a much less expensive crossing of SR 526. And I won't bore you with the details, but there's a median out there they can put a column in, and that's, that makes it a ton cheaper. And it also doesn't require as much private land takes as those ones that go further down toward the undercrossing of Casino Road, if you're familiar with where that is. The scores here are much more nuanced. They come, and like I said, the 2 stories. There's some cost differences based on that crossing, but the main difference is, do they function really well as a transit station, easy access, easy transit access, lots of development potential, or do they displace Casino Square and some of the areas there? And on the not performing well, it was our staff consensus that in all of the city, this was probably one of the worst locations in the representative line that Sound Transit had. It just is, it's really kind of in a little hole, kind of that's at a dead end. It's hard to get to with transit. It has schools all around it, which can't really or won't probably be redeveloped ever. It's right up against the freeway and has only a pedestrian crossing to get to Casino Road, which has 15,000 residents and they're, have lots of riders on transit right now. This would also require the Swift stop to be moved from convenient location to that Casino Road area in front of Fred Meyer up to the north to serve Station A, and that the stops we think would be right around the McDonald's because they have to be a certain distance from the interchange of 526. So that really makes that Swift stop less accessible. That said, Station A is the strong preference from the Connect Casino Road group after they did some outreach with their businesses and residents and partners. And the main reasons that we heard, this is fairly recent, by the way. We've been meeting with them regularly for quite a while, but Monday, thank you. Last day was not the way to say that. The day before yesterday, we got the results of their outreach, and then today we got a letter from them that outlines some of these things. So this is pretty current. So they pointed to the fact that there's no direct impacts to Casino Square shopping, and how important that is, and we all recognize that from years past. It's among the least expensive routes, and there's very little construction impact on the Casino Road area if you keep the alignment all north of 526. All those are positive things, and it's clear why they would think that would be, those things are good things to look at. Our staff response, and I'm sorry that I didn't, squanders is probably the wrong word to use. It misses an opportunity, really, with Sound Transit. I think squanders is too strong of a word, but it misses an opportunity that we hope is a, once in a generation opportunity to create a complete community and provide connections as well as it should. We also, while there is no obvious direct impact on the Casino Square development, we do believe that there likely will be forces that affect it. First of all, just the market forces will be intense. If that's, like I said, there's very little developable land around Station A, and so the closest thing will be that Casino Square to almost focus it on that Casino Square development. There's also probably some limited direct impacts from Sound Transit acquisitions. This is a Google Earth view of the pedestrian bridge as it comes right now. Sound Transit has indicated that in either Station A or Station B, that pedestrian bridge will likely need to be brought up to current ADA standards and rebuilt. Just from a constructability standpoint too, they'll probably knock it down as they go by either side. And so we can imagine that the landing area, if you've been by the one down at Northgate, it's not quite that extensive. That one's like remarkable. But the landing area is going to be fairly large and probably will need land on both sides of the freeway to accommodate it. So there will be some limited direct impacts, granted, not like Station C or Station D. Moving on to Station B, the positive is it has highest overall score in function. It saves roughly that $100 million I talked about earlier on crossing back over 526. The construction impacts are quite a bit less than some of the other southern stations that swing out into the area around the Evergreen Casino intersection. And we think in this one, it's really nice that Sound Transit will replace that pedestrian bridge because it will really probably function quite well with the location of the station. The biggest negative, of course, is that complete acquisition of the casino square. That was the problem with B that we saw all along, and so we worked pretty hard to come up with some alternatives that missed Casino Square. The best of those is Station E. And Station E is quite a strong option. It avoids the direct impact of both Casino Square and the village at Casino Road. It has strong development potential. I think it connects probably the best of all of them to the Everett Mall area by 7th going down that way. It has the second highest overall function score and function. The negatives are there's no new pedestrian bridge, more construction impacts coming out, and then that $100 million more construction costs that we really don't get anything out of. There's an estimate that that bridge, whatever cost that is, at least it is providing an amenity. This is just providing a more expensive overpass. So this is just looking at E and how that functions without all the other spaghetti of all the other things, and you can kind of see how that snakes around and through the intersection and back out. So, recommendation, the staff conclude that we should definitely study B and E. In response to the community comments, staff will provide an update on Station A prior to the Community Advisory Group, CAG, and Elected Leadership Group meetings that are coming up here fairly soon, and the recommendations from there feed into the Sound Transit Board. Regardless of the choice of station area, it was very encouraging in the letters we got from the Connect Casino Road group that the business owners are thinking of purchasing Casino Square. That was the first that I had heard, and we had heard that there was an effort to be doing that. If they were successful in that, then I would say definitely Station E would be the strong preference, because that would be then they would be in control of their own destiny as far as that goes. Right now, there's two different owners, and they're they're not out of state, but they're out of city. They're Mercer Island, Bellevue owners, I believe, if I remember right. The second point is we should collaborate with the community to create by 2028 permanently affordable commercial spaces in Casino Road area. So that is, I referenced that before, and this is specifically what we are. Through a community trust or something like that, some vehicle like that, create some affordable community space, commercial space that can be there for the long term. Any questions about this station area?
Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you. I apologize if I'm missing something, but for Station E, it says it's $100+ million more needed to cross SR 526, but in the previous station area, all of the stations are on either the south of 526 or, I'm not clear where it's crossing 526, I guess.
So the.
Between this group
This
and
is
the
the
previous
best
one.
illustration, and I used a big, yellow PowerPoint arrow to illustrate the cheaper crossing. And the only one that can take advantage of that cheaper purple crossing is B. Both D, E, and C, that crossing that's shown that's further to the east, that's the more expensive crossing. And the reason being is it's the geometry of it. It also, you can see all the private land and right away that it would, there's another, I don't know what that would be, probably half a mile of property acquisition that it would take on, from to the east of C and E, and that is all factored into that cost too. And then the further between the spans, the more expensive.
Okay.
So
So
those
it's
are
still
all-
crossing 526, but just the lesser cost of crossing 526. Okay.
Absolutely,
Big
yeah.
between the two.
Well, yeah, you hit it on the head there.
Okay, great. I'm sure I got more questions, but that's all I have for now.
And I will just say that I think the business owners are looking at this in the span of a 10-year time frame, but I think that we need to look at this in the span of a lifetime and beyond. If you save $100 million, you could buy 10 Casino Square shopping centers for these people somewhere. I just wouldn't, I think that if we are studying, a plan that would be acquiring the Casino Road Shopping Center that they're in, then I wouldn't encourage them to buy that, because I think that we need to choose the station that is the best aligned. We need to advocate for the best, station that meets the needs and the taxpayers' needs to save money. So I really think that it would be foolish of us to say, okay, well, because they're buying this, we're going to advocate for a less good station. I mean, I know the politics of it may feel different, but we can meet their needs in a different way for a lot less than $100 million, and also the opportunity lost on the potential development around the better station, so.
So we're working with them on that. This is, the benefit that we have right now is that we are way earlier in this process than all the other stations in the alignment. We're still fighting over where different Seattle stations go, and they're happening way before our stations, right? So the fact that we're already here is really good, and that we're already have been engaged with the community for some time. But anytime you're talking about this level of change in the community, there's so many emotions. And I think you're right, Council President, that it's hard for people to look beyond the current 10 years. But one thing in the discussions that we've had with the Casino Road community is how important it is not only to preserve the affordable housing, because those are the folks that are shopping at Casino Square, but then preserving the affordable commercial space, which they currently have. And so how do we, as we're planning for change, there's no way that this community is not going to change. Because we have Sound Transit coming, all of Everett is going to grow and change, right? So as we're planning for this change in this really important part of our city, how do we preserve both the affordable housing and the affordable commercial space that serves the affordable housing that we have in this area? And part of that is the connection of what Casino Square has. So whether it's building a new Casino Square, building a community center where folks can relocate, or finding an alternative station that works, those are the different options. And we have a lot of lead time as we're trying to work through this.
Yeah, no, agreed. I have clients down in the Rainier Valley in Seattle, and it's amazing. I can envision how this will be changing our community, because there's just been an incredible amount of growth in that area. And frankly, there is a gentrification that comes when you build transit. So to the extent that we can create some infrastructure in that area to preserve affordable housing and affordable commercial space, we should be thinking about that now and determining how we are going to make that happen. So I'm glad that we're talking about this at this time.
It would be wonderful if we could say to Sound Transit, we saved you $100 million. Could we have it, please?
Yeah,
And so far, they have said no to that.
yeah.
Moving on to downtown Everett. Again, one that we've studied quite a bit. This is the representative Station A with two stations, C and D, which are much more similar to what the city came up with when we did our Metro Everett plan. And they are closer to downtown. I circled a lot of different things. I will touch on all these as we go. I think the most important thing to just emphasize is that the downtown Everett station is maybe affected most by the interaction of three things: station location, guideway, and alignment. Sound Transit studied every alternative that we could think of and contributed some additional ones we never even thought of. All options that we looked at required significant property acquisitions, even the ones that looked like they weren't going to initially, because of the tightness of the property development up against the freeway in this area. They were both public and private properties that were being acquired, and even the poor performing option required significant acquisitions. This is an interesting slide, I think, just because I like walk score, and if you're unfamiliar with walk score, I encourage you to just look on it and kind of put in some things. But it tries to measure how walkable an area is, and I just put in Everett, I think, or no, I put in the zip code 98201, and it tells the story that the real walkability and kind of strength of amenities is targeted right at Colby and Hewitt, basically. And that shouldn't be any surprise to any of you all, but the Everett station is right on the edge of where it starts getting green. And the closer you get from Everett Station toward that star that I put on Colby and Hewitt, the better the performance of the light rail station gets because of the walkability, because of the increase in elevation. So it supports better development function, connects more neighborhood areas and community assets, and it corresponds to our city vision and investment to get closer. So those are just some general comments. The guideway, guess what? It's big and imposing. It limits buildings and vehicles under and next to the guideway. And it has both aesthetic and really psychological implications where it gets built. These are some of the alignment options. Kind of skipping to alignment, we really have the pink representative alignment and the yellow and green that goes down McDougal, and then with my magic Sharpie, I drew in the Broadway alignment in black, and then I also tried to draw in option X, which was encouraged to be studied by the Everett Station District Alliance. First of all, the original A location had a fatal flaw. It went right into the end of the Everett Station building, which we thought was bad. Tom Hinkson kept on saying, well, where's the tail track go? Where's the tail track? And he was right. It went right through his office. So they moved it over a little bit to the left or to the west to avoid Everett Station, and there were quite a bit more takes of land along Smith Avenue, and the tail track then would be literally directly in front of one of the most beautiful buildings in Everett. And when I say directly in front, like directly in front. Then they did A3, so they located the station really on our parking lot that is across the way. And again, similar property acquisitions. I think a lot of us were thinking that A would have low property acquisitions, but it really didn't. And it performed poorly, but you could kind of see how it might work if they moved it further to the north and closer to Everett Station. Option X, unfortunately, it was unclear if it could even be built with the geometry of getting over the railroad track and then down and under Pacific, or however you did it. So that one.
Where is that one? Where's X?
It would be on the east side of the BNSF track, kind of between Lowe's and the Sound Transit parking lot. It would utilize the Sound Transit parking lot on the east side of
Got it.
of the BNSF track.
And the Everett Station District Alliance wanted that because it didn't take as much property?
Yeah, just as an alternative. I think it was just something that served that district alliance quite well by activating the east side of the area.
Okay.
As the walkability thing I pointed out before, I think really anything on the east side has struggles because of the
tracks.
crossing of the railroad tracks. And it just, it's a little like option A from the Evergreen Casino. It creates a longer walk, a steeper walk, and less options. So going on to alignment, the Broadway alignment, Station D was the best overall performing station. Location, the property impacts, though, were pretty much all the buildings on the east side of Broadway all the way down. And we were working even to save individual buildings, and it just wasn't going to happen, like Hope Works Station. McDougal Alley alignment. There's an alley between Broadway and McDougal that is roughly about 20 feet below the Broadway elevation throughout the whole thing. And this was what, McDougal itself is probably about 30 feet below, so it slopes down, but most of the grade is made up by the time you get to the alley and the McDougal are close to the same topography. It avoids quite a few blocks of Broadway impacts, and by lowering the overall guideway down that much and putting it behind whatever gets built on Broadway in the future, we just felt like there were certain advantages. It could connect either C or D station areas. So the staff conclusions were that the best gateway look for the city on Broadway is a robust two-sided Broadway, not a one-sided Broadway with a big guideway. McDougal's lower topography lessens the guideway impacts, and the alley alignment preserves most frontage. There's some discussion, and I think this remains to be studied much further, but whether you run the guideway down the alley and leave a little space on McDougal for redevelopment, it looks like there could be a skinny lot there, or do you pull the guideway all the way up to McDougal, on the edge of McDougal, and then create deeper lots on Broadway, so bigger buildings could be built there. And I think that's going to be, one of those things that gets studied in the EIS if we move forward the way we're suggesting. So our preference is to study both Station C and Station D locations. Station C is basically like on 32nd, which is the kind of the front door of Everett Station, south of Pacific. Station D is between Hewitt and Pacific, so right about at Wall Street. And like we say, that McDougal alley alignment can serve either way. As a backup, we wanted to continue to study Station A alternatives to try to come up with the best one of those. We really think that C or D will probably be the winners as far as function and transit connectivity and everything. However, like on the Evergreen and Casino, we also think we should develop a program in the next 5 years to assist impacted businesses to relocate within Everett, because any of these alignments are going to affect a number of different businesses. Questions, comments?
Vice President Tui.
So I don't know that if they think beyond Everett, but if they do, how is that going to impact further north where it will go, so that I see the end here, but it could be, pretty impactful for the north end of Everett.
Each of the alignments that are under consideration would permit future expansion to the north. The one that's right near Everett Station would have to kind of follow the railroad tracks and probably rejoin the Broadway corridor to make it north to the colleges and the hospital and all that. It would be a similar kind of a question. There's the same pattern of Broadway, Alley, McDougal, all the way north. And so
Oh, okay.
at that time, probably different people making the decisions and studying it and everything, but they'll have to wrestle with that.
For sure in my case, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Something that when we talk about the study, we think of an environmental impact statement as looking at the environmental impacts, but are they also study the economic development potential and quantifying that?
Yeah, they definitely, excuse me, they definitely will and already have actually. So we've done, there have been real estate professionals that have looked at the development potential around each station, looked exactly at the walk shed, including crossings and topography, and this station kind of brings in this area of potential development compared it to our comprehensive plan. And there's a little bit of a chicken and egg because we're working on the plan and we can adjust where some of that development can be with the comprehensive plan update. So we can forward some of that, or I think it's available on the online.
But as they go forward in these two, whatever scenarios they decide to study further, they will continue that work and refine it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
And I think
Thank you.
there's a common misperception that environmental impact study is studying natural environment and sensitive areas only, and that's not the case at all. They'll be studying housing impacts, they'll be studying light, glare, noise, they'll be studying, like you say, jobs,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So anything, almost anything you can think of that is the naturally occurring environment that is left over gets studied.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Zerlingo.
Well, on that, I guess a number of us were driving and walking around these areas a few days ago. Sound Transit staff, some elected officials, and county officials as well. And we had directors Hinkson, Ernestine, and Yorick there with us. And the impacts he's talking about are the kinds of things I think they represented us really well there, because no matter whether the impacts we're planning in housing, economic development, and transit, all of those things need to work better. I probably was leaning more toward the engineering side of things and the structures and the spans and the radii of the guideways and all that. But I do want to emphasize that all of these things are all in play, different mix in each site, and I think we had a good team there, especially doing what we can to make clear to the Sound Transit staff there and the county officials there what the impacts will be, why we prefer the things that we prefer, and then, of course, for our part, understanding their preferences in the area farther south. But it is all of these pieces all of the time, and I'm still struggling to get as competent as I'd like to be with that. But I do want to say appreciation to the staff there in doing that, because they were bringing a lot of really deep and wide expertise there and well coordinated.
Yeah, I just also want to thank our staff. That's why I have 4 Sound Transit advisors they all have full-time jobs outside of advising me on Sound Transit. But Sound Transit is so complex that we have to think about all of these areas at all the time for every decision point. And so I'm very fortunate to have the talented, thoughtful, very smart team that is helping me then advocate for our city, not only first to my fellow county board members, so that the goal is that the 3 of us always get on the same page, and then the 3 of us are one really loud voice to the rest of the Sound Transit Board, 16 members that are not in Snohomish County, not familiar with Snohomish County, not familiar with our residents or our businesses, and so really making a strong case for what works for this community.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing added to that, as a great example, and this came more from the county in this case, the Ashway and the Mariner. What they're talking about there with Ashway is taking that thing called a Texas T, the bus exit direct to transit, and crossing I-5 with that there. And then another crossing they plan to do just south of 128th Street. And something that had completely escaped my awareness before that, but that is that right now it's hard to cross I-5, and when you cross I-5, you need to do it on a freeway entrance and exit ramp, and that's hard to do because it's crowded with all the regular traffic. So crossings, these crossings wouldn't be that. They'd be crossings for bus, pedestrian, bicycles, and maybe some other traffic. It would make it easier and activate those areas and reduce traffic in those areas on those major entrances and exits. So, one of those things, again, a really enlightening thing. The staff knew about that. That's something where we can work with the county to make things better for all of us, and hopefully we'll get their cooperation on the other issues.
Great. Oh, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. So before we move on to the operation and maintenance facility, I had a few things I wanted to mention. I am curious about a couple of things. So specifically for the downtown location, how upcoming changes to the Everett Station District Alliance and the rezoning and their vision for that area would play into where a station would be located, because I think right now there's the heat map and the gravitational pull towards downtown, but 20 years from now, there's going to be high-rise buildings and walkability and parks and people and businesses, and so the magnetic pull of downtown might be split between like old downtown and the new district, or whatever fancy name they come up for it with. But so I'm curious how that consideration of the future of Everett Station District is going to plays into these. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I do. There's the pull of what's there now, and there's the pull of what there could be to come. I think it's important to remember that there's also a lot of potential for change and growth and development in downtown Everett. I think all three of the station locations that we're looking at are sort of between the two. They're kind of in the borderlands between the Everett Station District east of the railroad tracks and our existing downtown core and all of that. So you'll have a relatively short walk both directions. What I heard when the convergence study was presented a year or two ago, and we continue to work with the District Alliance on the recommendations in that, was that it was kind of agnostic on where the station would go. The option X was looked at as one that was particularly helpful to some of the goals of redevelopment in that area. We were initially very encouraged with it, and we're all for studying it. It turned out to have some engineering challenges that prevented it. But I think that's some of the value of B and C and D, the ones that are around McDougal, is that they do serve both sides very well. Whereas A is a little bit tilted towards, both by topography and distance, towards that up and coming area.
Great. And then speaking of future things that to be built or potentially built, I'm curious if there's a timeline for when the stadium feasibility study is coming out, and if there's if that will include suggestions on where a stadium could potentially go and how that would impact any of the stations that are proposed.
Yeah, we're looking at the stadium feasibility study, which I don't know if I've put words to it that way, but yeah, let's call it stadium feasibility study in months, so very soon. And all of the stations that we've looked at so far in the alignments work with all of the different sites that we've been looking at. So we don't think that that's going to be a hindrance. So either way.
Great. And then I was curious too, so one of my neighborhoods is the Lowell District, and Lowell neighborhood, the oldest neighborhood in Everett, as they always remind me. So at the meeting, Sound Transit came and presented to the neighborhood in January, I believe. And Gail Chisholm, the Queen of Lowell, was prompt to remind us that that Lowell residents have been displaced twice by major thoroughfares, first with Old Broadway coming through, then with I-5, and so they had some pretty serious concerns about being displaced a third time by light rail. So do you know if there are any draft maps about where a light rail route would go between that Evergreen station and then downtown?
York is looking for a visual on it.
honestly, we spend all of our time on the station areas because that's where the decisions are, and the area in between the stations, there's not really an option for us to consider, so the Sound Transit staff are working on the engineering of it. I have not heard that there would be significant displacement
Yeah.
impacts to Lowell.
Yeah, the maps that I've seen thus far do not
freeway.
look like any displacement for Lowell. It's far enough away from the Lowell neighborhood, but I will keep my eye on that as our board member and make sure that I'm constantly thinking of our oldest neighborhood and obviously wanting to avoid any displacement there.
Great, thank you.
I'll just say that a long time ago, they did look at alignment on the east side of I-5, and they got rid of that right away. So the alignment is on the west side of I-5 or on Broadway. And Broadway has a lot of challenges, so we're going to presume that I-5 is going to be the path of least resistance. And then it enters the city around 41st and that whole mess there, but it doesn't touch the neighborhoods at all.
Okay, great, that's reassuring, thank you. And then for both the Evergreen locations and downtown locations, there was a mention in the notes about launching a program to protect affordable housing and protect affordable businesses. So I was curious what those efforts could look like.
Go first. Nuts. Well, thankfully, as was stated before, we have, this is the positive, the one silver lining of having time to, between now and construction, that there is time to work with some businesses before the property values skyrocket. But it would obviously be some financial assistance. I think it would also be looking at community partners, especially in the Casino Road area. As I said, like a community investment trust. There's a model that Mercy Corps has in Portland that is pretty interesting, where there's a shopping center that's owned by shares of community members. But, honestly, there aren't that many models for commercial space. That's more challenging. Affordable housing, I can tell you, there's lots of different providers of affordable housing, and what we're trying to do especially is meet with a lot of them early to get them to invest in that Casino Road area. Many of them have resisted or haven't even looked at that because they have policies in place where they don't want to do affordable housing projects in areas where there's poverty, because they want to have more of a mixed neighborhoods. But this is an area, because of what's happening with Sound Transit, that policy kind of fails them. And it's much wiser at this point to enter into that and get into the game early rather than wait until 2030 when and that's basically my estimate, is about 2030 when we'll start to see speculation and real movement on the real estate side, if construction is starting around that time to get the stations built.
Thank you, Dan. And I will add that the comprehensive plan updates, I always have to, if I'm up here, I'm going to have a plug for that to get engaged in it. We're planning for significant growth, housing, commercial growth, and with new construction, there's always the risk of displacement, and it's something that we're worried about and we're taking a really hard look at in that project. So that is broader than just light rail, and I think it underscores how even regardless of where stations go, Everett is a place that is already seeing rents increasing or seeing change and growth, and that's just a natural part of being in a really dynamic and, for better or worse, economically successful region with tons of jobs. We do have a particular program area within the comp plan update that's looking at displacement and gentrification impacts, and is going to have a list of actions for you to consider incorporating into the plan and then actually implementing, that will deal with both the residential displacement, it's not easy, and the business displacement. They're not easy, as Dan said. The business, because they're for-profit enterprises, are particularly hard. It's a lot easier to reserve income-qualified, affordable housing units to keep residents within the community, which is something that's, I have a passion for, is where we have strong communities, and I think Casino Road and Evergreen Way is a great example of that, and we're really lucky to have Connect Casino Road and that on-the-ground partner, because a lot of these are also difficult for government to do alone and probably shouldn't do alone, and so having that community partner to work with. If we were, there are some models, SeaTac International Market is one that was not related to light rail, but it was a collection of local small businesses that I think there was some public funding in it to purchase land, and then now it's owned in trust by a nonprofit that hosts these small businesses and was able to keep them together in the community. So there are some models. The comp plan update is going to be where we're going to look at that citywide, and then there's also the Model Code Partnership as a Federal Transit Administration grant to Snohomish County, Everett, Linwood, and Sound Transit that is, in short, making the most of the light rail investment with transit area station area planning. It also has a focus on equity, anti-displacement, and will be developing toolkits and recommendations for us to fold into the comprehensive plan in Everett as well as in Linwood and unincorporated Snohomish County. So there's multiple different ways that we are tackling this, and I think we meet it. We've heard it from the mayor, all of us on the team hear loud and clear the concerns from both specific areas and just the knowledge that the general growth that we're experiencing puts the whole city kind of in the displacement crosshairs. But there are tools, and we will probably have, I'll be coming to you, I think I promised this last time I was here, but we'll have an update on the comp plan, and I'll make sure to have a particular emphasis on that.
Great, appreciate that, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Let's move on.
I will just add to what York said, that it wasn't like the mayor had to convince any of us. We're all advocates of doing this. We've been kind of evangelists of other organizations getting involved. We were able to recruit an organization called LISC, and I can never remember what the acronym stands for, but they've been very active with the Casino Road community already, and they are funded by a fairly large grant and are able to do grants for community betterment, and we're looking to partner with them in the future significantly. And we think there might be other organizations that will really be active, especially in that Casino Road area. I'm not sure that we can rely on those kind of helps for displaced businesses in downtown as much. It just won't be as active. So I've done pretty well. I've got no nose swipes, but this is the last operation and maintenance facility north. This is the operation and maintenance facility is a large train yard where they, initially they get the train cars ready to be operational, and then they maintain them. It's about 450 plus or minus jobs that it represents on a site that is pretty enormous. The sites that they're looking at are roughly about 80 acres. And so, quite large. We've looked at lots of different options for this. I think the initial list was close to 20. It got whittled down pretty quickly to about a dozen. And then after literally a number of years, Sound Transit started this one early because they understand how difficult this is and how critical it is. They are down to 4 sites. 3 of them are largely in the city of Everett. E is exceptional in that it has a little bit of unincorporated Snohomish County around the airport. And then F is in unincorporated Snohomish County along Evergreen Way south of Airport Road. The scoring on these is really diverse, and it goes all over the place. I will just point out these criteria basically are the environmental impact criteria that get studied. Property impacts may not sound like jobs, but specifically that was the category that unique job classifications that are in our manufacturing industrial center in Southwest Everett fall under. And these are the kinds of jobs where the manufacturing lines have to get certified by the FTA or the FAA, and FDA, I'm sorry. And then the other thing I circled is the natural environment and environmental permitting. You can see that besides F, all of the sites have some natural environmental permitting challenges. There are two different kinds of impacts I just talked about. B1 and B2 are both in our manufacturing industrial center, or MIC. Site E is in the Swamp Creek environmentally sensitive area, and it's reflected in the scoring, as I said. There are enormous differences, though, in those impacts, in that the MIC land, we're really concerned that taking 80 acres out of this area is really undermining our bread and butter of our economy around the Boeing and advanced manufacturing center. The sensitive areas are currently a lot of like either undeveloped land or backyards, or, you know, kind of just scattered areas. And we're pretty convinced that with an entity, with an organization like Sound Transit, that it might be the only time when these sensitive areas can be really significantly improved. And the job thing I'll come back to, but the costs you'll see for the different sites range, and I don't know that this is telling the whole picture right yet. There's some other cost considerations here, but overall, Site E, we think, is the cost-effective option, has the best connection, the alignment. It's largely undeveloped. It does have some residential lots, but they tend to be large single-family lots. We also think that there are additional unconsidered costs with Site B or B2, which are basically like the portrait and landscape version of each other. They kind of overlap on one another. It's just a different way to cut 80 acres out. First, they likely require 2 additional crossings of SR 526. If we don't do Station A, we can keep, and we don't do B1 or B2, we can keep that whole alignment south of 526, and it's much cheaper than crossing it twice to get up and back from the OMF. The FTA and FDA, that should be certifications of manufacturing lines that are available. There's a property called Achilles, which is on 30 acres, which is a plastics company which produces a lot of real high-end plastic film for things like pharmaceutical areas. In fact, we were able to tour this site, and we learned that if you had a COVID vaccine, probably it was developed in Achilles, right in Everett film, made at that Achilles site, because it's so big of a deal as far as that industry goes. And then we think that studying Site B and 1 just stifles investment. They have sold 10 acres that we have a developer ready to develop, and yet studying puts a kind of a cloud on it. Sorry, I keep on touching the wrong arrow. So our preference is strongly with Site E and a backup with Site F. We go even further and say B1 and B2 should not be studied because of the kind of grabbing the third rail there on our economy, and we just really want to protect that.
I'm gonna interrupt a little bit and jump in. So it's hard to articulate how impactful the site of B1 and B2 are, especially to our counterparts to the south. When our King County counterparts on the board are relocating a tech company, you can just pick it up and move it. It is the easiest thing in the world. These manufacturing companies invest millions in their site. They're built into the facility. And if they move, you can almost guarantee they're going to leave the state. Not just leave Everett, but they're actually going to leave the entire state. And if they leave Everett, the reason that our aerospace economy it works here, our aerospace and manufacturing, is because we have the workforce. Every time one of those companies leave, we lose that workforce to wherever else in the, and then the likelihood of us getting a 737 line goes down dramatically. And so it's very hard to articulate that, again, to the rest of the board, because the rest of our board doesn't rely on manufacturing like Everett does. And so this is a really important decision that we are making, and we're pretty adamant about why B1 and B2 don't work. And I know council members Erlingo was with us on the tour of Achilles, but the Achilles site, I was so impressed with the work they do, and the work they do for healthcare industry, and they provide all the plastics for folks that are getting different treatments. It was like something like 70% of the supplies that we see in our hospitals are provided by this company right here in Everett, and I had no idea. And so you take that out of the supply chain, you force them to move. We're going to have a backlog of all kinds of things that impact on a national level, which is really hard to, because when Sound Transit's looking at this right now, they're looking at X number of jobs, X number of things. And the impact of the B1 and B2 side is much more intense than just a number on a screen. So thank you.
Yeah, I think they mentioned over 500 individually FDA certified plastics, films products for the biological pharmaceutical program. So that's why that stuff doesn't feel even like other manufacturing. It's kind of fixed in place that way, and it's important for us for the long term.
Any other questions, comments? Back to you.
Thank you very much. That ends the presentation.
Ah, okay. Any final comments or questions? Vice President Tui and then Councilmember
Yeah,
Schwab.
I just want to thank everybody. That was a great presentation, very clear. I get it, and I appreciate all the hard work.
Councilmember Schwab?
Yeah, I guess I want to echo that. Also, just this isn't the first presentation. I want to thank you for taking more time doing earlier presentations this last week. So that's why I kind of sat here kind of quiet, is because I asked all my questions beforehand. So I'm very excited about all the hard work that the staff is putting on. So thank you.
Yeah.
And Council President Stonecipher, I think you asked about boats at Achilles.
Yeah.
And you were right that they manufactured the plastic for those boats, but it was a different arm of the company that did the boats themselves in Japan, and then they were brought here for some different fabrication,
Okay.
but now they're doing that in a different.
They're doing it somewhere else
yeah.
now. Okay, because I thought that was when they initially
Yeah.
got here. Good. I'm glad my memory isn't failing me too much. Well, I want to thank you for giving us pre-briefings and then briefings, because this is a lot of information to cover, and I feel very well represented with our team of the Magnificent Four here, helping us through this process. The decisions we're making are, again, these are forever decisions. So such important work, and I really appreciate all the diligence that you're bringing to it. And we'll try to be as diligent as we need to be, although I can imagine I'm only here for a few more months. So there will be decisions made well long beyond my time here. So, but thank you for all that. Dan, a question, when is the next time we will need to be hearing about this, or what's the next step here for the city council?
I'll defer to the mayor on this. I don't think
Yeah,
we
there's
have a-
actually no step for you as city council. I'm your representative on the board, so I'm representing the city of Everett in this work.
And these are our
Yep,
decisions.
and all this,
Yep.
this is really just to update you on the work that our team is doing to support me in that role, and the decisions that I am advocating for on behalf of all of us for our community. So if you have questions or concerns or, anything, please come to me at any time. I have multiple Sound Transit meetings every week. I spend hours and hours thinking about this, so if you want to come talk to me about this, I'm available at any time.
Sounds good. Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank staff and the mayor for their hard work on all of this. I know it's tremendous undertaking and a heavy lift. So I just wanted to thank everybody for their time, and I really appreciate the offers for the briefing on the briefing tonight, and apologize that I wasn't able to make it work, but it was just really reassuring to know that access to information was there from our own staff, so I appreciate that. I also wanted to thank you for the attention to the comments from Connect Casino Road and the concerns that they have, and appreciate that that we're listening to them and incorporating their considerations into our considerations. And I also believe we had 2 public
Yes,
commenters
yeah, I
tonight.
was just gonna
Great.
ask. Angie, who do we have for public comment this evening on this item?
So we have 2 individuals, and when I call your name, if possible, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself and give your full name and city of residence for the record. So I'll start with Alvaro, and I'm going to start my timer. When you see it, you can start speaking. Are you there? I don't see your camera on or you being unmuted. Well, maybe we'll move on to Patricia. Oh, one second. Alvaro? And I just need you to unmute. There we go. Okay. Go ahead.
I need to minimize this. Can we do please Patricia first?
Pardon me, can you please repeat that?
Yes, can I go after Patricia, please?
Oh, sure, okay. Patricia? Go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Patricia Trabelstein. I'm trying to get my camera to come on as well, but I'll go ahead and start talking. I am a real estate agent as well as a business owner there at Casino Square. My husband has a tattoo shop there. It's been about 11, 12 years there. We met, Alvaro is actually from Connect Casino Square. And so we've been talking with him, and I've been following along with this because this is going to impact my business as well as many other things. I actually had lived on Casino Road at one point in time. I'm sorry, I can't get my camera to come on. I apologize. But I did live there at one time. I've actually been a property manager as well. So I've seen all facets of life on Casino Road. And I know how important Casino Square is to all that, not just because I'm a business owner there. I remember, just growing up there. I was 16 years old, and some of the restaurants and things that have been there for 20 plus years. So I do definitely understand the impact and the difference of where each station is going to be, and I understand that they have removed some of the options, which we were pushing for that's what our big hope was, but we understand that that might not work out. So our other alternative was also in the parking lot of Fred Meyer. We saw that one came off, but I didn't see a reason why. That one we were kind of pushing for just because of the homelessness and all that things that kind of tends to center in that area, in the area of where Fred Meyer's is. As far as Casino Square, I know as a whole, all of the businesses there have invested a lot in just remodeling and things like that. So we've tried to put forth an effort to bring this unique, this is a really unique thing, I think, in Everett. There's a lot of Hispanic businesses and things like that, but unfortunately a lot of them just don't work out. I don't know if you've driven through like the Everett Mall area and things like that, where there's just constant businesses coming in and out of there. And Casino Square has been something that's been there for 20, 30 years. So if it doesn't work out that we get to stay here, I would hope that there would be something that got worked out where we would, like Alvaro mentioned, or was going to mention, I hope, purchasing some type of property where we could all go together, even if it does end up being half commercial, half residential, something like that, because it's a really, really unique business center there, and it's really an anchor of the community. So I think that was most of my thoughts, and my time's almost up.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
All right, Alvaro, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Álvaro Guillén, and I'm the director of Connect Casino Road. My comments tonight are about the city's position on Sound Transit EIS scoping, and specifically the staff recommendations for the planned station in the Casino Road neighborhood, our neighborhood. Since January, my team and I have been engaged in the community and done extensive direct engagement with the Casino Road community on this issue. And we spoke with 21 small business owners, about 15 service providers, and over 340 people who live in the Casino Road neighborhood. During those conversations that I had with the community, with business owners, we have heard that our community opposes any option that would displace these, like Patricia was saying, unique collections of businesses in the Casino Square shopping plaza that I believe it is essential for the community and for all the residents in Casino Road. It's a cultural asset that the community has, as well as the city of Everett. We believe that including option B and C. So the options B and C would displace all those businesses. We also heard strong support from Station A, which Sound Transit analysis has suggested that is the best option with respect to both displacement prevention and cost savings. Our community expects that the city supports entailing Sound Transit to study Station A and not just provide an update prior to the CAC and ELG meeting. At a meeting that we had with business owners back in January, we heard interest in studying a new option that would run the light rail in a tunnel that would go underneath the neighborhood instead of an elevated railway that crosses Casino Road multiple times. And council members, I ask you to keep this community feedback in mind as you continue to listen to the city staff. And I ask that you pose tough questions about how the city arrived at its position on the preferred station, specifically the recommendations of option B as the preferred alternative. And lastly, I ask that you ask staff to explain their plans to better engage the Casino Road community going forward. Thank you for supporting the Casino Road community in our fight to grow with the light rail and not get pushed out by it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvaro. President Stonecipher, that concludes our public comments.
Great, thank you. And do we have any, oh, yes.
I just,
Please, sir.
after hearing the feedback, it reminds me that we are in a scoping period of particular public participation. Sound Transit is managing that through March 10th. So everybody who's listening online or watching this, you still have the opportunity to get your voice heard. They've already collected thousands of comments. They will be providing a report on everything that they hear to staff, to the elected leadership group, and to the board. There's a great website that explains all of this, everettlink.participate.online. Just encourage everybody who's listening to go check that out and make your voice heard.
That sounds great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Go to the order. Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda, and with no further business or executive session, we are now adjourned.